Welcome to Female Voices Life and Loss. I am your host, Wayna Berry, and today I have an amazing guest who I had the pleasure of working with not quite a year, but it felt like longer. Miss Magaly Maldonado Lopez, and that's a mouthful. I love it, just as sassy as she is. And so she is a licensed master social worker, born and raised in Dallas, Texas, currently provides therapy to children. She has passion for emotional well-being and human rights. She loves to spend time with her crazy family. I can second that on mine, friends, and her cute little chihuahua, while sneaking in some yoga in there too, as well as exercise, because I know how she is about her body. So, also, she sucks at being vulnerable. And I don't know if there is any one of us that does that well, yet understands the importance and need for vulnerability. So she's here to get down and vulnerable, share her challenges, what helped her get through the moments in this personal journey she's going to share with us. So I don't want to give it away. Everyone likes to romanticize relationships, and I'm here to be real with you and give you the good and the ugly of it all. Magali is here to remind people that the best thing about being human is feelings and the beauty and the ability to feel all those emotions from joy to grief. To be able to experience intense loss because you love someone so deeply. Wow. How lucky are we as humans? So, I know we don't feel lucky when that grief hits. We don't. We don't. I love how you talk about the romanticize of relationships because I do feel like we all came up with that kind of Prince Charming. We're gonna fall in love and live happily ever after. They never tell you about the ups and downs. So welcome.
Thank you, Luana, for having me. I'm super excited to be here and get to just talk about relationships and just talk about the reality of it. Cause yeah, just like you said, we really focus a lot on romanticizing, especially as kids. That's kind of what we're like brainwashed in a way is like, you're Prince Charming and that things are just sunshines and rainbows and unicorns and all this amazing stuff. And the reality is, as you probably oh, no, it's not the case. There's a lot more that comes with that, and it's not always unicorns and rainbows, and oftentimes can also have some thunderstorm, rain, maybe a little bit of hail in there too. Yeah, it can be really challenging sometimes, and so I wanna, be here and be vulnerable, and let's talk about it.
What's this personal journey? How has life shaped in the last, I don't even want to say, has it been a year since we've seen each other? Yeah, it's been about a year. So, how did life unfold? Because, at the end of the school year, which she's a professional, so I'm not, I'm going to talk trash. So the end of the school year at the school that where we met, we were both being smacked around, like literally. And just working with Magali just made my life so much easier. She's such a warm and welcoming person to work with. But at the end of that school year, there was this big life thing that was going to happen. You and your guy, y'all were moving, you were talking about buying a home, and it was all beautiful. It was all beautiful. What happened?
Yeah, that's what I'm here to talk about. Yeah, no, that's kind of exactly right what we had talked about in our last little time of seeing each other that I was planning. I was actually living in St. Louis at the time, and I was gonna be moving back to Dallas with my ex-partner at the time, and we had really we were excited about this move together, and we had talked about buying a home together, like, we were really thinking about our future, and I think maybe some of y'all might feel the same way to, any of our listeners that, sometimes you can plan for the future with someone, but there still might be those ongoing challenges and maybe we're not sharing them as much or as vocal about them. And I definitely think that was the case for us is like, I think we thought we were making progress, but it wasn't necessarily the case. I think we still had our underlying challenges and issues that we weren't really, I think, fully addressing. And I think as I've reflected from then, I think we did have our unresolved childhood challenges as well. I think we're both human beings and who are right, have our own challenges that we went through as a kid, and I don't wanna speak for him, but I'll speak for myself at least in my challenges, and it was hard. I really do think Your relationships are a big reflection of your childhood relationships, and I mean that specifically in regards to your parents, and for me, that is such a great reflection, and I didn't realize it in the moment that a lot of, like, the same some issues that we were having were issues that I had with my parents. Yeah, it was such a big revelation now to be at this point in where I'm at now because, like I mentioned, I had the thought about coming back to Dallas, and I did end up moving back to Dallas, and this is where my family is at, and with being here, it's brought me, of course, closer to my parents, and that kind of reminded me a lot of my childhood wounds as I was having challenges, and so, like, to bring up an instance, I was talking to my mom about, challenge we were having, and in those moments, like, I was expressing to her my feelings, and immediately after I expressed my feelings to her, she kind of made it about herself, and she was like, "I'm the one struggling, I'm having all of these challenges," and it instantly reminded me of a conversation that I had with my ex-partner, and I remember a time of me going to express my feelings about a problem that we were having, and then me just being like, "No, I'm not trying to, like, make this about you or attack you, I'm just trying to express my feelings," and whenever I had that conversation with my mom, I was like, "Whoa, I have had this conversation before," and I think that's sometimes I think when it comes to relationships is that, um, it can oftentimes be easy to blame our partner, and don't get me wrong, that is challenges and what's perfect whatsoever, but also sometimes there's a lot deeper stuff that may be going on than what we may realize, and I think that's what I learned through just this reflection, I wanna say at least, but, just to kinda go back to your original question. Yeah, there's been a big change, and because of our underlying challenges, we weren't able to work that out, and we did decide to separate, and I feel, obviously in the moment, it was a very hard moment, a very hard decision for us both to take, because at one point, we just, like, weren't able to really solve our challenges anymore, so and I wanna say, like, specifically, just to get a little bit more vulnerable with y'all and just kind of break down really what happened. So
One second, one
yeah,
second. So I want you to take us from the beginning though, just a very short of how you guys met, what you thought it was going to be, so the audience can kind of see, how from your mind anyway, what this new thing was going to be and how excited you were about it. And then
okay. Yeah, no, so just kinda start from the beginning of our relationship, correct? Okay, yeah, I can do that. Alright.
okay.
Well, so just to tell you a little bit kind of how everything started, our relationship kinda started kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie, and so I had recently kind of gotten out of a relationship, and I, was hanging out with one of my friends, and we decided to take a picture together, and he, like it was on Snapchat, and he thought I was cute, and he was like, "Hey, who's your friend?" And he was like, "Oh, what's your Snapchat?" I know, really, like, Gen Z kind of love story, I feel, but that was very much how it happened. To share another big important part is, I was living in Texas at that time, and he was actually living in Kansas at that time. My friend, it was one of my childhood friends, she was actually going to college in Kansas, and so that's how they knew each other, and so that's kind of how the universe brought us together, and so we, like, had no intention of, like, dating or anything like that. We were just, like he was in Kansas, like, I was in Texas, like, we just kind of became friends. He just was, like, would ask me about how I was doing and just kinda get to know me, and we didn't think anything of it because he was in Kansas, and so that was really, really beautiful about it is that it took a lot of pressure away from, like, the dating pressure of getting to know someone and just being authentic, like, we could just really be ourselves because we weren't trying to impress each other, we were just trying to be friends, and so that was really nice, but I think after a while, I think we both started to catch feelings for each other, and so that was kinda how, like, started our feelings-wise, and then but I do wanna share that, as we were getting to know each other, like, he would tell me about himself, of course, and so, like, I also, I feel like was getting to know him and all of the negative stuff about him, and so he would tell me his challenges and his past relationship challenges, and he had told me just, like, how just infidelity stuff that had happened, so that kind of was something that had came up, and so that was I of course, we were friends, so I wasn't thinking anything too much of it, but I was aware of, like, his challenges and maybe him not being perfect, and so, and again, we were just continuing to talk and be friends, and then we decided to meet and, like, in person because again, we were just FaceTiming and texting all the time and on phone, and then we decided to just kind of meet and decided to give it a chance, and I think maybe for anyone who may have fallen in love previously, you forget about those, like, red flags, I think that previously that he had shared with me, and I very much feel like I did, like, like, I was like, "Oh, we're dating now, and, like, things are now sunshine and rainbows and unicorns," and he would, try to, buy me food, take me out, and just, like,
Mhm.
reassure me in ways, and that was really, really nice, and so that's what I, would focus on and then would disregard, our red flags. And I think that's something that's really important to remember is those red flags and when they come up, addressing them from the beginning instead of just like focusing on the beauty and love and that this is going great, but also that a real relationship involves conflict and conflict resolution specifically, and conflict resolution is so important. And I wish I had remembered that because I was just very
Were you like one of those women that kinda like, "He's with me, I'm amazing, I can fix all that other stuff," you know?
and
Or I can love him through some of these things, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I think that's more maybe me loving him through it because it's funny because I always said I didn't wanna, date someone and try to fix them, like, that's not what I wanted, like, I wanted someone to be ready, and that's always what I said to myself, but, when you fall in love, sometimes you just fall in love, and, like, something that I feel like I've learned to myself is, like, be careful who you fall in love with or, like, who you talk to because you could fall in love with them, and maybe it's having a big heart, and,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think, like, sometimes we do have to be careful with who we allow to come into our heart because for me, I like to love people for who they are, and so I would never wanted to change him, and so I wanted to love him through his journey, and I saw a lot of change and growth through him, so, like, he was growing a lot as a person, and so, like, I would see that, and I didn't wanna discredit that through his challenges that he was going because he was also human. He had his own childhood wounds, and I don't wanna, like, dive into that. As I am gonna be honest, like, he had his own childhood traumas and wounds, and, like, I was very aware of that. I think because of that, and maybe as a woman, I also wanna talk about what it means to even just be a woman in a relationship. Oftentimes, we are, like, those caregivers and are expected to kind of take care of our person, right? I mean, even not even just in a relationship, but in life, we're expected more to be those caregivers, and I feel like sometimes in my relationship, it did feel sometimes like it was more of me wanting to care and give for him rather than it being more of a relationship where he was also sometimes caring and giving for me, and maybe that's also a little bit of maybe my therapy background that I want to be there and support people, and so,
But it's
uh
kind of hard though, because I was gonna ask, with the therapy background, do you feel like ex-partner, his family, like everybody's kinda expecting you to hold that kinda space for all of them because you have that background?
yes, and I very much definitely wanna emphasize that, like, oftentimes he would be like, "Oh, you so much more than me, so, like, help me, like, guide me," and, like, would tell him, like, "I'm your partner, I'm not your therapist, and, like, I am gonna support you, of
Well, did you
course."
say that?
I did say that to him because, yeah, I'm not your therapist, and, like, boundaries are important, and I know that as a therapist, even so, but it's hard, right? Where I'm human as well, and so sometimes it's hard not to have that boundary and to be a little bit more of his therapist, and I feel like I, of course, would try to understand him more and who he was, and so but I didn't want to do that therapy part of it, like, I wanted it was his responsibility to do his own work. I'm also a person in that relationship going through my own challenges, and so I also have to do my work so I can heal my own childhood wounds, and so it definitely I think that was their expectation, and it's unrealistic, and
I was in the same situation myself, you know what I'm saying, with my husband, feeling like I'm his life coach for 6 years, and it's not a real comfortable place
mm-mm.
to be. 'Cause, you've done your work, so you're needing them to do their work, and then you come in and you hear, like you said, about all the drama of how all the other women have done wrong, and you're like, "I could be better," and that's all he needs is just some support, and then he can figure it out, and then it doesn't ever happen. At least, it took it a long time to happen, I'll say that, but you know what I'm saying? So, it's just like, you fall into that trap so easily.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think when you love someone, of course, you're gonna want to keep hanging in there because you love this person and maybe they're giving you some times some of that support that you need. Not all the time, and so it's like that push and pull, and so it's hard to know, is this something that's just short term, or is this actually how things are gonna continue to be in the future? Like, will you be able to support me and be there for me, the way I am for you?
Yeah. And that's tough for guys too. Their mind and brains don't work in that kind of way that we do. We're givers. We want everything to work. We want everything to flow. We want to do what's easiest, even sometimes at our own detriment.
Yep, and I definitely wanna emphasize that part too, sometimes at our own detriment, because, yeah, I definitely feel like I lost myself, I think, at times in my relationship, and I feel like I didn't always prioritize myself and my needs, and not because I didn't want to, but because I was also in love. Like, I also wanted to support my partner, and I would go to a lot of his things because that was part of being there for him, and I also don't get me wrong, it's not that I didn't enjoy it, I did enjoy being there, but also I think being in a relationship also well, I like using the word partnership specifically because it really reminds you that it is a partnership, that it is 2, that it's not just one side leaning, and I think that's why maybe I do sometimes use the word relationship because it definitely felt like sometimes it was more of like one way or the other and not a partnership, and I think, yeah, partnerships are so important, and you have to also make sure you are okay through all of this, and yeah.
And when you said losing yourself, what did that look like? How did you know? You're just doing your reflection and stuff. How did you know like, man, I lost myself?
I just think, like, even just in this last year, we broke up and all of that, like, I feel like I've accomplished a lot, and I think that's a lot. Like, I've been of course, my time is now my time, so, of course, all I am focusing on is myself, but I previously had my goals. I mean, I've always had my goals. I'm a very goal-driven person, but like I mentioned, like, a lot of my time, I wanted to be there to support him, like, making sure like, I loved, just even making dinner for him, like, little things like that, or I don't wanna say just him, for us, making dinner for us and, like, going to, like I mentioned, to some of his events and, like, I don't know, doing stuff for maybe us rather than just myself, and so, like, not maybe just for him as well, but for us, but also what about me, just for me, like, doing things just for me, and so I think that's the part I think is losing myself, and so, like, sometimes I was able to not lose myself and, like, I was working out, which is always something that I've always enjoyed, but I think now, like, since, having my me time again, I've been doing some yoga, and I've been really, really loving that and just, like, getting back into that. I also have, like, my own financial goals that I have for myself and being able, just saving. I've learned about investing in the stock market and just, like, stuff like that, that I always had my own goals, and so I'm hopefully soon gonna be buying a home, just, like, little things like that that I have for myself that, like, I want to do for myself that I'm doing for myself now for me because it's
Yeah.
and so I have some other future goals that I have out there. I also start a podcast, so maybe in the future, and yeah, just like my own stuff that I wanna do for myself, and,
So it's really exciting just to hear you talking about some of the, you're checking off some of the boxes of things that you wanted, such as buying a home and things like that. And I think a lot of people might hold off on doing things like that because, oh, I'll do it when I get married or I'll do it when, ABC. So it's really kind of exciting, to just be like, no, this is what I want for myself, and rent is high as hell. So it's better to buy if if you're able, but just thinking about newfound clarity and, you mentioned a lot of, kinda childhood wounds. What were those for you?
well, my childhood wounds, I feel like, if I'm being honest, my parents were not able to emotionally show up for me. That was just not something their parents did for them, and so, like, I understand that, and acknowledge that, but of course, I'm human, and so in the moment where they're not able to show up for me emotionally, it sucks, breaks my heart a little bit and shatters it a little bit. But I also, as an adult, I also understand my grandma was not very nice to my parents. They were, physically abusive to them, maybe emotionally abusive. And so, how could my mom or and dad show up for me if they never had anyone show up for them? And so I think that's a big childhood wound for me. And I think I didn't think I realized it so much. Again, through my reflections, I've been able to kind of notice it now. But I definitely think, yeah, those like came up in our relationship. And I feel like that was just I think a big one is sometimes I wanted him to show up for me and be there emotionally, and he did not have the emotional capacity. If I'm being honest, he was not emotionally intelligent or emotionally mature, and so yeah, exactly, and yeah, men in general, right? And I'm also 27, so his brain is, like, barely developed, and so, like, it was just yeah, it's just those challenges, and so, like, yeah, that was one of my big childhood wounds, and also, another one is, financial stability, I think, was also very important for me, and so, like, I grew up moving a lot. My parents even till this day, my dad still complains and worries about money and just, like, not having enough money, and so that for me is, something I hear all the time, and so, like, I oldest daughter, and so, like, in, Hispanic culture, women, kind of, do a lot for the family, and so that's kind of a lot of what I had to do, and so I was very aware of, like, just, like, finances, struggles of the family, and so I didn't want any of that, and I think sometimes I did put pressure on him, and I don't wanna say, like, to make more money or anything like that, like, not to him necessarily make more money, but for us to, like, have financial stability, and I would, like, tell him all the time just how important that was for me, why I wanted to make sure we were saving and why we were, thinking about buying a home and just, like, being mindful with our money. And so, that was definitely something that came up, and that was really hard for him because, if I'm being honest, his family was very supportive and, like, he never had a struggle of like that financially, like, his parents would, to this day, probably buy him whatever kind of thing he needs, like, they bought us our couch for our apartment when we were living together, and so it's just that, like, little things. He didn't have that struggle, so he didn't understand, like, why it was so important to me. It also felt like a big pressure because he had never really had to take care of himself or anyone, like, he was in a way taking care of us because we had our apartment together and we were, creating our life together, and so I do think that also created a lot of pressure on himself. Yeah, and I also think, like, he also had his own mental health challenges as well, and, all of that plays a role in, healing and being able to solve those challenges too.
Do you feel like you dated your parents, though?
In a way, sometimes I wonder that too, because again, me being back, I feel like has reminded me a lot of these things. I think sometimes my parents are able to show up for me and sometimes they aren't. And look, okay, like a good example, like my dad forgot about my birthday. It's just like, who like my dad? And I'm his favorite child.
Smart.
And I'm his favorite child. So, and that says a lot. Okay. And so, like, I mean, it was a super forgot. He like texted me at like 10 PM, still like, really? And so that's what I mean. Sometimes my parents can show up for me. Like, my dad drove all the way to St. Louis to come help me pack my stuff. Like, he showed up for me. And then, like, it was awesome, right? But then it's little moments where he can't show up for me. And it's just like, what? Like, I'm your favorite? I say I'm the favorite. I think I am.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're my favorite. No.
But just things like that, I feel like I think I think that a lot of that was mirroring in my relationship with him where, like, sometimes he showed up for me and sometimes he didn't, and maybe it was, like, those childhood wounds where it really bothered me that, like, my parents don't show up for me, he's not gonna show up for me, like, I think what I realized is that I think deep down and, like, is that I think a part of me feels like that I'm unlovable, that I'm just not lovable, and it's like but I obviously know that's not true because my parents have shown up for me and they can, and, like, again, it's their own childhood wounds and trauma that stops them from being able to show up for me, but I think that's deep down what I didn't realize I felt.
Yeah, I'm
That's
with
what I really realized in this last year is that, like, wow, that's what I feel, and I didn't realize because I am someone who I like to think has a lot of self-love for myself, and it's crazy that, like, deep down, that's actually how I really feel. So it's interesting to realize that, but it's also a really nice realization because I know that's not true. Like, I am lovable, and I know, like, the reason things didn't work out with him wasn't because I'm not lovable. It's like I had my own childhood wounds, and he had his own childhood wounds, and he also had his goals that he was focused on, and again, I also think his mental health impacted him, and I think he needed to take care of that, and had no desire to, and I can't, I can't be his therapist and heal him. And so, like, again, I know I can cognitively think and understand that I am lovable, and
But there
it's nice to
is
know.
a pull though when we're around people that remind us of our family, because we
Yeah,
love our family. And then we're like, "Oh, this feels normal. This feels really good because it's the same energy from mom and dad. I myself have married my mom and father 2 times. Bless them. They probably won't appreciate it, but I'm gonna say it, you know. So just kind of a narcissist. And they I know my mother's journey. I learned it this year. So just kind of how you learning your parents' journey. I learned why she's the way she is, but I'm a little different from you, meaning just because that happened doesn't mean we get to have the same kind of relationship. I'm not going to excuse any behavior, and I need you to show up for me. If you can't do that, I can't be in relation with you, cuz I'm getting hurt cuz I have needs. So I think it's I've been that way for probably gosh, since I've been divorced. I've been divorced since 2007. So, um we've had that kinda, like, hard topics, like, "No, that you don't get to do that." And then even this year, I think I said to my dad, I was like my biological father, I'll say that. Um, I was like, "I do the things for you, not because you deserve it." You know what I'm saying? Like, "I respect you, not because you deserve it, because of my relationship with the Lord. It's your birthday, even though you don't call me, I'm gonna send a text or whatever because I'm being respectful to my parent, but don't think you did anything, because he wasn't there and there was some other abuse. I was just like, no. And same with my mom. Like, I'll do what I choose for you, but if you don't show up for me, I'm not spending my time with you. Why? It's just like, and my mom has done a lot better, Lord bless her. And maybe because revealing her childhood hurts and her childhood wounds, like you're saying, maybe that freed her up a little bit. So she is kind of feeling a little bit lighter. But I'm just very direct with whoever I'm in relationship with. Like, no, like you're doing your journey. Once you find your peace, you're gonna protect it. You're like, no, nobody's disrupted that.
Yes, absolutely. No, and I totally agree because I very much feel like that's where I'm at right now. Like, now that I have my peace back, I'm like, "No, I'm not sharing my peace with anyone." And then, we have to protect our peace because people don't always value their own peace, and so we have to value our own peace. But I wanna go back to one thing that you were saying, though, about, your mom and, having those boundaries. I love that. We need to have boundaries because, yeah, even with our parents, and I've sometimes, like, I will bring up little moments where I'm having that conversation as well and being like, "Is there something you need to communicate with me?" Like, yeah, because like, my little sister was telling me that my mom, like, keeps talking crap about me behind my back, and I'm like, "Ma'am, like, you're an adult, come communicate with me," you know? Like, and so I just, like, trying to be better at more rather than just getting mad, expressing need from her, because I very much just get mad, and I'm like, wanna shut my family out, and I don't think that's as I wanna move forward rather than also contribute to the toxicity because yeah, my that's how my family handles things. It's like, we're just gonna, be mean and rude, and it's like, "No, like, let's actually solve these underlying issues instead of let's not be toxic." And so, going back to the boundaries, even if they can't respect what you've communicated in your needs, then yeah, we gotta have those boundaries, and maybe when they're in a space of maybe more healed, hopefully, that maybe they'll then be able to come back because, yeah, boundaries are important, and self-love, we gotta make sure we're okay, and sometimes the people and our parents specifically aren't always those people, and
Bless them. But
mhm.
I do leave the door open. So it's like when you get there,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be here. But like you said, I love myself enough to have the hard conversations like you're saying. We're not gonna be just being over here continuing this negative. I wanna
Mhm.
live in love. Love is inclusive. Love wants everybody around. Love is beautiful. So, and I know you Imma pull it out. So when you were how did it come about? So, like, was it like the perfect storm where you guys decided this we can't do this anymore going forward? Or was your partner like, I can't do this. This is too much and I'm not moving. Was there like a final straw that how did we get to the breakup? Because
Yeah.
we started on this beautiful journey of
Right.
getting to know each other and we're best friends and it developed so organically.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I feel like we always had, like, our underlying issues, and I think, like, I always I think it was because of me, that our relationship lasted for so long. If I'm being honest, it's because I don't even wanna say I don't wanna use the word respecting, that I wasn't respecting myself, but more like I just wasn't, like, upholding my boundaries and my needs, and, like, I was, like, flexible with them, if that makes sense. But we always had, like, conflict going on, I feel like, in our relationship, but then things would get better. The thing it was just weird. I just feel like, again, going back to the whole push and pull thing, like, it's like he would, like, show up and, like, be super supportive and, like, things were really great, and then out of nowhere, things just wouldn't be great again, and, like, it was just a lot of, I don't know, push and pull, and I feel like I think that's why I think throughout our whole relationship, I was confused because it's like things were great and then they weren't, and but then they were good again, and so then it's like, I don't know, I think throughout the whole thing, I just never really knew. I don't know, like, I thought we were great. Yeah, it was no, it was, like, a very toxic.
I was in fight or flight for 2 years, like, what is
No, I really was. No, I really was, and I didn't realize it till now that I'm, like, more peaceful, and it just feels like yeah. But, I mean, to bring back, like, exactly kind of, what really happened no, and so kind of going back, I mentioned a little bit earlier that, like, he had told me about infidelity happening,
yeah,
and so before right, we were doing long distance, and so before I ended up moving to, St. Louis, we had a conversation and, like, I don't even remember what had happened or what, but, like, he I was helping some guy out. I think he had some questions about something, and, like, he was a little bit jealous, and he was like, "Oh, like, what are you talking to him about? Like, what is this?" And I was like, "I have nothing to worry about, like, I'm just helping him out." But I can't remember what it was. And so and then I was like, "Well, is there something" I was like, "Have you been talking to people? Is that why you're worried?" Or, like, something like that, and then he ended up telling me that, like, when we first started dating, he, like, was talking to a few girls, like, inappropriate stuff, and he didn't, like, do anything with anyone, like, anything physical or anything like that, but it was just the fact that he, like, talked, right? The fact that you were talking to girls. And again, like, he had told me about that and, like, right when we were getting to know each other, and, like, he was very much very self-destructive, I feel like, before we started dating. I just feel like I disregarded it, and I just didn't think anything of it. But anyways, going back to when he told me that had happened, like, I was very upset and I, like, obviously had ended things because I was like, "Oh, I'm not about to move to St. Louis for someone who's like this." But I was like but we ended up talking and working things out, right? And I was like, "Okay, you're promising you're not gonna do that again, right?" Anything like that. And so then I decided to move to St. Louis and I was like, "Okay, let's" like, things had been great, like, that happened right at the beginning, like, it was like, it'd been a while. So I was like, "Okay, like, we'll forget about it. We won't forget about it, we'll just keep moving forward." And so we were just like having conflict. And so, like, at one point, like, we got into a fight and some girl had messaged him and, like, he messaged back and he was, like, talking to her. And so, like, that had happened. And this was like, yeah. And it was like, really? And so that had happened. And I was like, really? Like, I was like really upset about it. He told me about it after, but still, like, why? And so, like, that, like, really bothered me as well. And so then, like, and then, like, I had noticed, like, he was kind of, like, checking out girls, and I was like, "That's uncomfortable and weird," and so I just did not like that, and I brought it up.
and I'm sitting here, you checking them out?
Oh, yeah, yeah, no, literally, exactly, and I was like it just, like, that started to happen, I feel like, towards the end of our relationship, and I was like, "Why?" Like, it was just so weird, and I was just like I had talked to him about I even, like, cried to him. I was like, "This is just impacting me so much." Like, I was like, "Maybe you don't mean it in, like, a way," because he would always tell me, like, how much he loves me and, like, how thankful he was for me and, like, just, like, he would write me letters, like, and that's what I wanna emphasize. It was just so confusing. It's like he would write me letters all the time, how much he loved me and how thankful he was for me, like, we were gonna build our future together, all these things, and then it's like, okay, then, like, what? And so, like, it was just so
You
confusing.
checking on girls. What's happening?
Literally, I knew he wouldn't, like, actually do anything with anyone, like, he
It's
just, like,
not a
never gave me but still, like, that's just not a healthy relationship? And so, like, there was an instance we went on a family vacation together with his family, and we ended up going to Disney World. It was, like, supposed to be the most magical time in the world, and, like, when one time at one point, like, he was, like, talking to some girl, and I don't really know what happened, but I just got really upset by it, and that just kind of, like, caused, like, a fight, and just from there, like, we just, like we're just fighting a lot, like, we just, like, couldn't stop fighting from then, and, like, we're just over it. We were just been in fight or flight for just such a long time that it just, like, wasn't worth it anymore. Like, we had, like, those good moments, which was so confusing. Like I said, it was very, very confusing, and maybe some listeners have been in relationships like that, where it was very confusing, and you're like, "What?" Like, I get you. And
dated this guy, right? And I didn't even notice. I was so gone. Imma just tell you, gone. He was oh my god, Stan what's his name, right? And so I would talk to my friend Shannon, and I would be like, "Stan came by." My voice would change all the time. Like, oh my God, Stan was here. And so he would do things like you're saying, surprise me for lunch. He always paid for everything, such a gentleman. I had foot surgery. He picked me up from surgery, got my medicine, got my food, stayed there with me all day, just like all the courting things that you think a guy would do. But I never met anybody in his life. I never met his best friend. I never met his family. We encouraged each other through grad school. We would be on the phone all night doing our homework. He's doing his paper. I'm doing my paper. And me, I am a connection person. If you spend quality time with me, and our conversations are fun and impactful, I'm gone. He never touched my body. I'm gone, but it never went anywhere. I mean, so I stopped answering his calls because I had a counselor girlfriend and she was like, "Girl, what are y'all doing?" Like, you need to give him space so he can figure out what he wants to do. Kind of like force him to show up. So I did what the kids do. I just ghosted. Instead of having a conversation like an adult, I'm growing, I'm still growing. But it was hard because I was gone. I love some Stan. He was so fine. I was like, and then I see him maybe fast forward 3, 4 years later, and he's like, "You literally stopped answering my call. You watched me call you?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "'Cause you don't want shit. You just wanna disrupt my peace," you know? And that was very, very I mean, I was gone. That was very hard for me not to answer the phone, you're in and then I had all my hair cut off, right? And he loved it. I was like, "Oh, Imma let it grow back." He's like, "No, you're beautiful." And I just felt seen, but I had to choose myself, and it was hard. It was very, very hard because I had to look at the optics. Luana, you have met no one in his life. Never seen his home. He was living with his parents, so I kinda thought because he was going through a divorce, grace. No, he just didn't care. He worked like 3 jobs. He coulda had an apartment if he wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Think the red flags that we explain away. I saw him later. He was still fine later when I saw him. I had to pick myself though.
Good. It's that's the hard part, but it's the most important part of the whole thing because
It
my
was a journey, I'll say that, and you're right, when you love I mean, even just looking at my current situation with my marriage, how my son passed, and it's incomprehensible for women to understand why I'm still married. They're like, "Why are you still married?" So I have a little bit of yours of just trying to love someone through a mistake, like you were saying with the infidelity. Not literally infidelity, but I think emotional is still, you know, infidelity.
No, I would tell him, I was like, "This is infidelity." I was like, I would tell him that, and it really bothered him that I called it that, but I was like, "No, you are literally cheating on me, like, that is not you are not faithful to me, and that is what that means." And so, yeah, I felt like it was cheating and yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you. But then we also go to this other part that I want to bring up where we moved to St. Louis, we moved for this guy, we moved for this relationship. It's all hopeful, happy, but it's literally only about this relationship, like you were saying. So I don't develop female partnerships to balance this out. I'm kind of making my partner be my God, for lack of a better word. And men just cannot, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't care. You can be the most sensitive, balanced, whatever kind of guy. They cannot check all our boxes. We're complicated beings. And so sometimes we're putting them in a position they didn't even earn yet. Then you got the thing of I heard this lady say, like, baby girl, she said, my mom would say to me, baby girl, that man can't be your whole, he can't be your everything. You gotta have your ride or die girlfriends. You gotta have some other people outside of that relationship, Because what happens when you get mad and you fussing that week and da, da, da. I don't have nobody else. I'm alone. I'm isolated. I'm getting sad. So
I agree with all of that you're saying. I definitely I feel like being in St. Louis reminded me how important community is, and, especially because I have mostly always had my community being in Dallas. I also lived in Austin, and I made some friends there and had my community there, but being in
yeah.
St. Louis, I just feel like I didn't also give myself, I think, a lot of opportunities to also build community just because we were doing a lot of his stuff during my free time. And I want to say that it was just because of his career. It was just a lot of the things that we had to do was kind of outside when I was out off of work. And so, like, it made sense, but also I could have prioritized myself more, right? Again, putting ourselves first. Regardless if we're in a relationship, it has to be a partnership and you have to prioritize yourself. And I didn't. And I definitely that's one of my I think a really big I don't like using the word regret. I don't I don't I don't I don't have regrets, but it's something I would have liked to have done better for sure. If I was gonna do things all over, I definitely would have made sure I had my community, and just, like, focused on it more and just yeah, because just like you said, Luina, when things get hard, who do you talk to? And you gotta have someone to talk to in those moments, and because they your person cannot be your person for everything, and
Nope.
I very much felt like I definitely did that, at times, like, I made him just, like, my everything, and, I mean, it was easy to do because I didn't really know anyone, it was the first time I'd ever been in St. Louis, and so, like, it was all really new. It was just hard, and then I also think because of our job, like, I was very exhausted after work that I just wanted to go home and relax, and yeah, and so it was just a lot of layers, but again, self-care, self-love is so important, and you have to prioritize yourself no matter what's going on. That's definitely one of my biggest lessons is I have to prioritize myself because no one is, and no one did.
And you're actually teaching the other person how to treat you when you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause they're like, "Oh, she's doing everything I need. Great. This is all about me. I am winning." You know, on these
Yeah.
streets.
Yeah.
Like, hello, I matter too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what advice? Because we've all been young and in love. I can't say that many times because I grew up with all women. My mother is like, "Dudes are a dime a dozen." That's the motto I grew up with. You know, my mom was like a pimp. But it's I'm thinking about these guys. She's like, "I'm cute." Like, "You're either rocking with what I'm rocking with or you can move on." You
Yeah.
kinda how she
Um,
so I say that to say that's good in a sense. We need to take her a little bit, you know, like, "Mom, if they're doing everything, you gotta pipe down a little bit." But you know what I'm saying? So what would be your advice for women who desire and just like you shared, I'm sure you desire a partnership with somebody that can meet your needs and you meet his, you know, vice versa. So I don't think that door is closed. I think it's just on a pause so while we get this work together. But what advice do you have for women who wanna keep that door open for love, but prioritize their self in this newfound relationship? Because you can get swept up in love, you know what I'm saying? You just get and let's not and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about myself for a minute. Let's not add in the lustful aspect. You might fight and it might be a red flag, and then it turn out and you're in some other thing and you're like, "Ah, let it go." It's just that's why I love that you guys took your time on the front end. I feel like you were very intentional in figuring trying to see what's what. But how can we not get caught up into the fairy tale of it all and, you know, stay grounded because I'm gonna tell you, I'm 45. I will absolutely leave you. And if I am in love with you, I will still leave you if you're not doing what I need done. Because, like you said, I prioritize myself. And I don't want nobody that can't give what I'm giving. I'm putting my all in. You can't put your all in too. Uh-uh. It's a problem, you know. But thankfully, I'm gonna say this up front. My husband has been working 110% for the first time ever. He took off work for a week just for me. He was like, "When I get the kids, we gotta prioritize each other." So
oh,
that's new. But I'm just saying, how do you keep yourself grounded and not getting lost in it? And how do you walk away when you're so, so in love? You know what I'm saying? But it's not a good fit.
yeah, yeah. Well, my first thought is, self-love, I think that's really what you need to focus on first before you start wanting to date, and it's really hard because who doesn't wanna be in love and who doesn't want, who wanted to take 'em on cute dates and, like, all of that that comes with it, right? That romanticizing part of it, like, that fun part where you get to, like, plan stuff out, get to go on dates, and I don't know, like, go to the carnival or whatever, I don't know. And so, like, all that stuff, right? Like, who doesn't want all of that? I also want you to think about in the long run, what do you want for yourself? Like, do you want a happy marriage? Is that your goal? Or is your goal just to, like, maybe just get out there? And if it's maybe you're just trying to get out there, then that's okay. Maybe do some casual dating. But if you're actually maybe ready to, like, maybe do something more intentional, then I really want you to just think about your values. Who are you and what matters to you the most? And I think that's something that I have had to, like, really think and take a step back from just because I knew I had my values previously when I was in with my ex-partner, but, I didn't always prioritize them, and I think that's the really important part of it is, like, not just knowing your values, but then prioritizing them, right? That is the harder part when it comes to being in a relationship is that priority of it, but it's just so important because you matter, and like I mentioned earlier, no one's gonna necessarily put you first, if you're not putting yourself first, and not because they don't care, but they're also human.
I'm like,
Yeah,
"We're human.
yeah, they're
You give us
human.
an inch, we're gonna take it. We're gonna take a mile."
Exactly, yeah, and, like, they're human, they also have their own challenges, they might not know how to love you, right, and so sometimes it does take a little bit of guidance on how to being loved because right, just like we talked about my whole childhood wounds and my mom not being able to show up for me, like, that is something that I do wanna have a conversation with my next person that I start to see and letting them know, like, "Hey, when we get into conflict, this is a little bit hard for me," and also being vulnerable about it because we're human and we have to be honest about who we are and that we're not perfect and that maybe you might make a mistake, in those moments when y'all have conflict, but being able to also apologize and just be honest about what you are and who you need, and if they're not willing to listen, and they're, gaslighting you, dismissing you, whatever the case is, then they're not the one, and it's not because maybe they don't care, because sometimes that's how I felt with my ex-partner. I was like, "Oh, he doesn't actually care about me. He doesn't love me." And, like, that wasn't the case. Like, as much as our ego can be hurt, like, that's very much what I was feeling is my ego was hurt, and I was sad and upset and angry at him, but really the reality was, like, his childhood wounds are like, he has his own childhood wounds that are allowing him not to be able to show up for me, and he also had his other priorities, and, like, I had to understand that, and that's when I had to like, enough was enough. Like, I had to at one point make a stance and knowing that this wasn't anything that was helping me grow anymore, and I knew that previously, like, I had thought about leaving before, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
stay, and sometimes, like, I also want people that are if you are in a situation like this, like, don't, like, be so hard on yourself. You're human. I also think, like, that's one of the reasons I wasn't so hard on myself that I didn't leave sooner because, like, one of the things I love about myself the most is that I have a big heart and that I am always gonna, like, love someone and then not necessarily romantically, but, I'm gonna give my love to anyone and that's just who I am, and I felt like I showed up authentically in a relationship and, as much as maybe I should have left sooner, I was being myself and I wanted to be there for him as well and, I wanted to give it a shot, and so, don't be hard on yourself. Everything happens for a reason, and if it took you this long, it took you this long. 'Cause it took me 3 years of us dating for me to finally decide to leave, and, that's crazy, and I'm like, now that I'm here, I'm like, why did I deal with this for such a long time? I'm like, "What was I thinking? What's wrong with me?" Like, we could have all of those self-doubts, but that's not helpful, and we're human. Like, I'm human. I have my wounds, and it's okay. I'm learning and I'm growing, and all I can really do is be thankful that I'm here and not putting up with that anymore. And so just remember to put you first and that you matter. And if you're not happy, then it's probably not the place for you. I guarantee.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can try as much as you want. And I say that for someone who's in a relationship for 3 years, and I tried so hard, but that just wasn't.
With you. I'm on the other side of that thing, but I definitely did similar things. And for myself, just being a second time marriage, you really want to ensure that it works out or ensure that you're giving your all to that. And then mine is further complicated with the little people involved, So then you get that like, oh, I gotta do. So it's very much a journey. It's very much a up and down kind of or ebb and flow, like you say. But if the cons outweigh the pros, then, we got to put the big girl panties on and be like, get hopeful and get excited about your future.
Yeah, and I wanna add something else to that, I have started to date a little bit, I've been trying to get back out there because it's been a year, and I'm like, "Okay, I do wanna, fall in love again." And it's also, as scary as it's been, it's also been very healing because, my ex-partner, he was not very emotionally intelligent, and so, conflict, I just it was conflicts are so hard. Like, it would take forever for us to solve anything, and now that I've been dating, like, I can have a conflict with a gentleman, and it's like, this doesn't have to last, like, a whole day of us trying to create a whole conflict and resolution. Like, we can actually just talk about it in, like, 5 minutes, and it's not a big deal.
Really?
So healing. Yeah, it's just so
Is it?
healing. It is, it's so freeing, and it just reassures me how I
You're
did the
on.
right thing, and I deserve to have someone who's also on my level because I'm a therapist, so of course I'm gonna be emotionally intelligent, and I needed someone who was that, and again, like I said, the emotional I'm not showing up to me was a big thing, and so, like, you just gotta be honest to yourself and, like, your needs are your needs, and if
Whatever
they
they are, though,
yeah,
you know?
and, like, you are your own cup of tea, and if they can't handle you, then that's okay.
Yeah, I kinda did that with my cousin, though. One of my cousins was just in this relationship, just giving her all, giving her all, giving her all, and think she was expressing her needs, so I asked her to role play with me. I was like, how did you express your needs to her? Because 'Cause you're telling me, and it sounds like you're saying all the things." So she told it to me, and I said, because she's very it's a lot of times I think women are meek and mild and kinda, low, and so when she said it, it sounded more like a suggestion, not like, "These are my boundaries you're violating," or, "These are my needs." And I said, "Oh, she thinks you're playing with her." I was like, "You gotta say it with your chest. You're not she's not buying it." You know? So, or she would tell her girlfriend, "I need ABC," her girlfriend be like, "Oh, okay," and she'll move on, throw her some money or whatever if she's working too much, kind of a thing. And so, finally, I was like, "Girl, you need to say that with your chest. I don't know what's happening here." And so she did. And so I wanna just give this update that I'm fully taking credit for.
You deserve your credit.
Is well on her way. She's engaged now. It's been a year later. She's blossoming. It's so beautiful. She's found her partner and life not without challenges, but things that they work on together. It's very healthy. They talk. It's not money centered because the best things are not. And that's what I try to tell my husband. Like, all the good that we love in this life is not the material things. So, I'm saying that to say, Magali, it can happen for you. You can find your person in another year. You're telling us you're engaged and about to live your life. It's gonna be so beautiful. So, I'm just saying, stay open. That's all. Keep those boundaries high, those standards high. If they ain't checking what you need them to check, you can drop them. Because I broke up with my husband 4 times before we got married. Like, I'm not dealing with it. Okay.
Yes, I agree, and I'm gonna take it in because I need to remember that because, again, I am human, and sometimes it doesn't stay.
Yeah, it was funny that last time he tried to get cocky with me, like, "You don't want all this?" I was like, "I'll pass."
You're like, "Bye, you don't want all this?"
No, I just said, "No, I don't." You should have seen his face. You could have heard a pin drop. I'm making all this money
Good.
and everything, and "You don't want me?"
Yeah.
And girl, it's so funny. He walks out the house like he's leaving. Fine, then. I'm like, "Fine." Then he stands there. You can hear him in the hallway standing.
Aw.
He's like, "Okay, let me rethink this."
He's like, "What do I say now?"
Yeah, I
He's
was
like,
like,
"That
"Bye.
didn't
See you later."
he's
Yeah.
like, "That didn't work."
Not at
He's like,
all. But
"Good. That's how
he
it's
came
supposed to
back and
be."
was like, "Okay, okay, here's where I can compromise."
See? And that's the part we needed, the compromise.
Mhm. Imma do better. Imma get Imma get a bonus at the end of the year. I'm gonna buy you a ring. It's gonna be great. We're gonna move forward. I was like, "You can buy me a ring. I'm not moving in with you," but,
Yeah,
he bought
I
the ring. He was
love
like, "What?"
it. I love it.
I was like, "No, we got small kids. I can't be living with you." So, saying all that to say, held those boundaries, did not compromise with who I was and still becoming. And forcing not force is a bad word, but challenging my spouse to rise in a more intentional and deeper kind of way.
Yeah,
And he's doing it. I had to get
beautiful.
out my own way. I'll say that up front as well too. Cause sometimes with women we kind of hover. And sometimes we gotta give them the space to figure it out or whatever.
I agree. Yes.
So it came together organically, but I think you're a person who's very open, you know what I'm saying? And if somebody is, talking to you, intentional communicating about things that are going on, whether it's good or bad, I think as long as they're working on it, I'm working with you, but I don't want to be stuck and I don't want to be talking about the same thing 18 times.
I agree. I'm over that. That was a one-time
New
stage in my life.
standard.
Yeah,
Yes,
one stage of my life, done, over with.
and dating is so freeing because you can cancel it right on out. You don't even gotta
Literally
give an
not,
explanation.
right? Ghosto.
Right, I don't
I really wanted to, my therapist and me would not, but I might,
you don't owe them nothing. But instead, so
I
not even
especially
a
if they're
return call.
horrible, they don't deserve it.
I'm just saying, you don't got to, that's all I'm saying. You don't gotta disrupt your peace. You be like, "This just don't feel good. I'm over it. Alright."
Yeah, no, I
And then
agree.
you
My
move
peace
on.
is everything, and I will protect it.
It's so fun, and it's so much freedom on the other side. It is.
I agree. That's what I've been experiencing, and it's been very beautiful. I've been very enjoying it.
Love that for you. So we are going to have Magali on again. And so we're gonna in that conversation, we're gonna dive more into her career and how she shows up for these babies because she loves these little people. And so we're gonna talk about how we can help them through hard times, hard topics, what us as moms can do, us as parents can do, and also as a community, because like she's mentioned 18 times, she is very much a community person. And I have been with her in Austin. She is, and they are, and I love it. And I'm just like, this is great. So we're just gonna talk about how can we take care of the younger generation and help them and equip them for some of this hard stuff. So we will see her again. And do you have any takeaways for anybody?
Well, my one big takeaway for everyone is remember to just give yourself lots of self-love. No one else can give you that amount of love that you can give yourself, and you are lovable and so amazing, even if you're not perfect or feel like you want to be where you are or want to be where you want to be. I know I said that really weird, but yeah, just, be happy with just you and who you are right now in this moment. And again, you don't have to be this perfect being because no one is, no one, no one, no one. And so just be happy with where you are and enjoy the journey. Oh, and I also, Lena, I don't know if you're okay with this, but I also have a dating bill of rights that I was thinking about, and with my kids actually when I'm doing therapy with them. But I thought it'd be nice for maybe anyone who is wanting to start dating or maybe having some dating challenges. I have this dating bill of rights that I use with kids. It just reminds it's kinda how we have our, Bill of Rights, our
Mhm.
rights for when we date, and it reminds us that we do have specific rights, such as using our voice and saying no and stuff like that, and so just I can share that with you.
Right. So I will have those dating bill of rights. I might add to it because you know me, high boundaries and high standards. So text us, DM us, email us, and I would love to share that with you. Until next time, we'll see Magali again soon. This has been Wayna Berry, and you have been on Female Voices, Life and Loss. Thank you so much.